Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here and for joining our press conference today. I'm Jana Uemura. I'm a climate campaigner for the Global Forest Coalition, and we are a coalition of organizations that relate to forests in over 70 countries and over 130 members. Today, I'd like to bring our speakers to address community leadership and how it must be at the heart of any just transition, and why the Global South must reject false solutions such as carbon markets. And I would like to invite all of our speakers today who are from our members to talk to us about that. So around the world, many communities on the front lines are showing that real, gender-just, people-led climate solutions already exist, but they're constantly undermined by economic and political systems built on exploitation. So this press conference brings together voices from all of our regions to expose the global forces driving destructive policies. And I'll invite each of our speakers to share brief interventions. Thank you so much for coming. Wanan Perpibu from APWLD, and we'll begin speaking about the blue economy and some of the just transition. Thank you so much, Wanan, for coming and for joining us.
Thank you. I am Wanan Perpibun from Climate Watch Thailand, and we are also a member of the APWLD. Very good morning, friends and allies. We have been hearing this in this COP and the previous COPs as well. They're talking about blue carbon, blue economy, critical minerals, or even like the new word like the net zero initiative. And then we see that this one is not just only words. This blue carbon and the blue economy is really the new ocean grab. Across Asia, in my region, the blue economy is being rebranded as climate action. And the blue carbon schemes, starting from marine protected areas to nature swap, debt for nature swap, they are really branded as climate solutions. But what they are doing in reality is very simple. They grab lands, they grab coastal and marine resources and territories from the fishing communities. In Thailand, in my hometown, in my country, the government brokers with the carbon credit companies, and they are trying to disguise the carbon credit within the mangrove restoration. And the communities are told with this mangrove restoration that it is conservation. But in fact, their fishing grounds are fenced off, and their rights into the use of the fishing grounds and also the marine resources have been removed. So this is not restoration, and this is not conservation. It is recolonization of the ocean. It is one carbon credit at a time. And behind these kind of words and the projects, tied with the same financial institutions that we have seen, and those are loans, debt for climate and for nature swaps, blue bonds, and also they are tying our countries and our communities into a cycles of debt and dependencies, and all branded as green growth. And then we have been hearing again on critical minerals. And these critical minerals, it is the new green transition and also new green extractivism. We are told the world is moving beyond the fossil fuels, but if the transition is built on new mining frontiers, lithium in the Philippines, nickel in Indonesia, rare earths in Thailand, then this is not a just transition. It is the same story of exploitation under another name. And communities that resist this development, they are branded as anti-development. Women human rights defenders, women environmental defenders, women climate action defenders are harassed or even sometimes criminalized. The mines poison rivers, destroy cultures, and destroy livelihoods, and fracture communities, all in the name of clean energy for the global north. We cannot call this progress, and we cannot call this climate action. These are the false solutions, and these false solutions are really do harm. These false solutions do not cut emissions at all. They commodify our ecosystems. They financialize nature where corporations continue polluting. The real solutions are already within our communities. They already exist elsewhere in the global south, and especially in my country, in the Asia Pacific. You've seen so many communities, fisher women, fisher folks, smallholders, informal workers, they are already restoring ecosystems. They are saving seeds. They are reclaiming the mangroves area into the sea using bamboo lines and also ancestral knowledge and wisdoms. Yet they are not using loans. They are not using carbon credits. And then that is already proof that you have the climate justice and the real solutions under and within the community control, not within the carbon market. And these are the real transition. And these real transitions are rooted in sovereignty, biodiversity, and also in care. So I think together with all the peoples at the front lines, we are also demanding an end to ocean grabs, blue economy, blue carbon, because those are violating communities' rights. And we are rejecting the extractive transition because they are repeating the same system of colonialism. We are demanding the dismantling of carbon markets because they privatize our commodity, our nature, and deepen inequality. And we are demanding climate finance as reparation and also not loan, and to ensure the direct access for women's groups, fisher folks and fishing collectives, and also indigenous peoples. And I think a just transition will never come from the boardrooms or negotiation room from here or from the carbon trading schemes being discussed in that pavilion. It will come from the hands of the communities who restore the mangroves and also who save seeds and who protect the earth. And that is protection of the earth because of the life, not for the carbon trading or not for the profit. And thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you so much for your powerful intervention. Let's keep on protecting life. I'd like to now invite Ariel Islipak from FIAN, for the Fundación Ambiente y Recursos Naturales, FARN, for his intervention. Thank you so much, Ariel.
Good morning. My name is Ariel Islipak. I work at FARN, as she said, Argentina, a 40-year-old NGO that combines research, advocacy, and strategic litigation on socio-environmental issues to bring environmental justice to people and the planet. We work directly with affected communities and connect the local realities with national and global policies. One of our main concerns is achieving a rapid and orderly phase-out of fossil fuels, a phase-out that is urgent and that must address the deep ecological and distributed inequalities between countries and within them. But while farmers, social movements, indigenous communities, and civil society keep building real bottom-up solutions, this blue zone is filled with hydrocarbon lobbyists. They are here to defend their profits. They are here to ensure that the most vulnerable continue to bear the burden of the climate crisis, pollution, poverty, and health impacts, even if they did not contribute to causing this crisis. In the little time I have, I want to be clear. Beyond the debates over languages happening here, we must reshape a transition that is a simply new form of extractivism, as Van said before, replacing fossil fuels with a model based on massive extraction of lithium, copper, cobalt, manganese, or the so-called rare earth elements is not a real transition. It is the expansion of the same logic that has brought us to the same multi-crisis that we are living. Most of the extraction process consume enormous amount of water. I see it in my country every day. They destroy biodiversity. They displace indigenous and peasant communities, violating indigenous rights every day. They systematically violate human rights, and they will leave us with tons of waste to deal with, and also methane emissions causing damaged health. I come from a country where successive governments promote an economic model centered on more gas, more lithium and copper mega projects, huge dams, and even green hydrogen. All of this under the influence and, in many cases, the direct pressure of the same oil and gas lobbies that try year after year to silence community voices in these spaces like this COP. If we genuinely want solutions to the ecological crisis, we must fundamentally change our relationships with nature. That means transforming the entire economic system, how we use common goods, how we extract, produce, transport, and dispose materials, and especially the consumption of the richest 1% of the planet. A just socio-ecological transition is impossible without real participation from the people and full respect of human rights and planetary boundaries. Solution must come from community-based decision-making, not from corporate boardrooms or fossil fuel public relations strategies. I urge the negotiators to stop arrogating themselves the decision-making that belongs to the people. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ariel. Indeed, the Global South is not lacking solutions, but only facing systemic barriers rooted in colonial and extractivist power structures. So I would like to move on to our next speaker, who will be speaking from IBON Africa, Caroline Muturi, who will focus on carbon markets. Thank you so much, Caroline, for coming.
Warm greetings of solidarity. Thank you for having me. I'm Caroline Muturi from IBON Africa in Nairobi, Kenya. It is an honor to be here with you all and share our views. Today, 30 years since the first Conference of Parties, we continue to see inaction from those most responsible for the climate crisis. So how is it that after 30 COPs, we still experience worsening climate crisis? We bear to witness how corporate interests have captured every negotiation. They have co-opted and distorted how a just transition is viewed in these halls. As such, we continue to see a trend of so-called solutions like carbon trading projects in my country, and also so-called conservation projects that lead to massive violation of human rights and intensify the impacts of climate change. In northern Kenya, Rendile community, which is a pastoralist community, were pushed into a so-called planned grazing initiative marketed as a more sustainable means of subsistence. This so-called solution paved way for land grabbing and fenced them off their ancestral grazing territories. This is a reality in many African communities. This is not the solution. This is not a just transition. A transition that is not people-powered only multiplies poverty and inequality. Therefore, we must demand a transition that transforms lives and how societies are organized. As Africans, we need a transition that brings power back to communities who have been stripped of their lands and resources through years of colonialization and imperialist plunder. That is the transition we need. Our communities have already shown that this is possible through real solutions that have been practiced for generations in harmony with nature. Smallholder farmers in my community and country are already practicing agroecology, which has improved yields, reduced dependency on expensive and harmful chemical inputs, and gained more control of their land and production. At the same time, their practice strengthens and their adaptive capacity to not only droughts but also flooding. A transition will happen, that much is inevitable, but justice is not. Justice must be fought for and built by the very communities whose practices and solutions show us what a truly sustainable, people-powered, and people's transformations looks like. These real community-led and gender-just solutions should be supported and advanced at all levels. Our peoples will fight for nothing less in nothing less in and out of this COP. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Caroline, for your fight and for your intervention. Next, I'm going to ask Andrea Echeverri from the Global Forest Coalition to bring her intervention. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. My name is Andrea Echeverri. I'm from Colombia. And I'm here to talk about food, because basically we need to understand that we cannot talk about a just transition without a just energy transition, without understanding what actually energy is. So basically, food is energy, the energy that we used before we had the Industrial Revolution and fossil fuels was the one that we get from food. the ones that we had from the animals. So we need to also understand food as energy. And we need to talk about food sovereignty and energy sovereignty. And basically, that also means that we need to bring together what capitalism and the multiple system of oppression has artificially separated. That is, our struggles for a just transition in food systems and around fossil fuels should and must be linked. That also implies the relation that agriculture has, industrial agriculture, with climate change, with the climate crisis. Agriculture is responsible from three quarters, like about 60% to 70, no, to 1/3 to 2/3 of global emissions. And we're not really talking about that. Also, we need to understand that without changing this system, having a lower temperature than 1.5 will be absolutely impossible. This system relies on fossil fuels for fertilizers, for tillage, for transportation, for thousands of kilometers. So we need to talk about the struggle coming together. And we can say, we can have a just transition without people. We need to talk about our daily energy. And our daily energy is basically the food that we have, the power that we have in our hands. So yesterday we had an action, and we're saying and we're claiming no justice without peasants. We can't have a just transition without peasants. We won't have ever a just transitions without women. We won't have food without women. And that's what agribusiness wants, a countryside without peasants. They want to lock us outside with their narratives and with their false solutions, and having this 300 lobbyists here, and having people in their delegations, and having the agri-zone. So we're talking about big polluters, but those big polluters are also not only the fossil fuel lobbyists, they're also the agribusiness lobbyists. And we need to understand that we need to struggle together, and also understand that tackling and transforming our food system, reclaiming our food sovereignty, our right to food, it's also a struggle for a just transition around energy. And we'll just say, no big polluters will pass, and we will let them. They no pasarán. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Andrea, for bringing the food systems to the conversation. That is really essential conversation that we should be having. So before I move on to our last speaker, I would like to say that this press conference has been organized jointly, like I said, by our group members. So Global Forest Coalition, IBON International, the Asia Pacific Forum on Women, Law and Development, the Indigenous Environment Network, the Fundación Ambiente y Recursos Naturales, FARN, and Indigenous Peoples Rights International, IPRI, with the support of CECOEDECON and FIAN International. So all of our speakers and teams will be available outside if you'd like to talk or if you'd like to ask any questions. Thank you so much again for coming. And I will now give the floor to our last speaker, Joanne Carling from the Indigenous Peoples Rights International. Thank you so much, Joanne.
Yeah, good morning to everyone. The global energy transition is going the wrong way. Governments and corporations speak of cleaner future, but for Indigenous peoples, the reality on the ground tells a different story. For decades, we have suffered land grabbing, displacement, and the destruction of our forests, rivers, ecosystems, food systems in the name of development. Adding insult to injury, that while our territories host renewable energy projects such as dams and geothermal plants, our communities remain in the dark. Today, the same harms are being repeated in the name of climate solutions, and this is not a just transition. This is green colonization. 56% of known critical mineral reserves lie within indigenous territories. And for now, the rush for mining is accelerating, bringing forced evictions, pollution, loss of livelihoods, disasters as we see unfolding in the Democratic Republic of Congo, abuse of women, and conflicts that too often lead to violence when we defend our lands. Indigenous defenders across the world are being criminalized, attacked, and even killed for protecting the very ecosystems that sustain humanity. The energy transition must never become an excuse to grab our lands and resources. A transition built on dispossession of indigenous peoples is not only unjust, it is fundamentally unsustainable. True climate solutions already exist. They are found in the stewardship of our forests, our biodiversity, and our diverse ecosystems, areas specifically proven to restore or store carbon, protect water sources, ensure food sovereignty, and sustain life. Indigenous knowledge and governance systems have safeguarded these territories for generations. Yet instead of strengthening our rights, we are discriminated and violated, and decisions are being made without us. We need a different path, one that is grounded in justice and real social equity, with the leadership of indigenous peoples at its core, not for profits, nor the interests that fuel corruption. This is why here at COP30, we as indigenous peoples demand a clear outcome under the Just Transition Work Program that should explicitly protect our rights to our lands, territories, and resources, and to self-determination. And this requires the demarcation and legal security of our lands now. Requires free, prior, and informed consent for all energy transition activities that affect indigenous peoples, territories, and our lives. Ensures the protection of indigenous peoples in voluntary isolation. Safeguards indigenous human rights defenders who are at the front line of climate action, and guarantee effective accountability mechanisms for polluters and violators of human rights. Ensure access to renewable energy by indigenous communities, and provide financial and technical support for our innovations and community resilience. Without these guarantees, this energy transition will replicate the same injustices of the past. We come to COP30 with hope that our world will finally recognize that justice, rights, and sustainability are inseparable and should be put into action. Hope that this Amazon COP will honor and amplify our solutions and uphold our rights. No more fossil fuel in the Amazon, no more fossil fuel in other indigenous territories. It's time to change the current path of energy transition from extractivism to sustainable stewardship of our lands and resources for the benefit of all people and the planet. There is no climate justice without the protection of indigenous peoples. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joan. Thank you everyone for your interventions. I would now like to open the floor for 1 or 2 questions at most, if you would like to have any. Would any of our speakers would like to make final remarks? Or any final thoughts? Well, I would like to thank you again. Oh, I'm sorry. Please, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm a researcher in the area of transformations, and now the Global Goal on Adaptation, paragraph 39, the latest text, is saying that perhaps we need adaptation that is transformational, and there's a division between countries. And I wonder if you have any thoughts on that, on the transformational language, if you see any leverage on that, or if you think that, you know, perhaps more risky than... yes, thank you.
Transformational on the...
would like to answer this question or make a comment?
Maybe I can. From our perspective, the transformational actions in relation to adaptation is actually the community resilience, the actions taken by communities to build their resilience, because they're the ones in the front line. Indigenous peoples have always been building the resilience in terms of the climate action, but the situation now is very severe. So when we talk of transformational adaptation, decisions for adaptation should involve the participation of those in the front line, local communities, indigenous peoples, remote areas, farmers, workers. They are needed, and women. That's one. Second is that a finance should be given to these communities so that they will be able to innovate and come up with a proper solution that is effective to their context, because adaptation depends on the situation and conditions in the locality, and the local people, indigenous peoples, know best how to address these changes that are happening in their territory. So transformational action should never come from the top. It should always emanate from the bottom and build on the actions, solutions, and innovations already done by the people on the ground.
Absolutely, Joanne. Thank you so much. Wanan, please.
If I may share, we've been thinking about in terms of adaptation, so that could also be reactive adaptation and transformational adaptation. So to us, transformational adaptation should go beyond national and temporary fixes to the climate impacts. And it's about changing the system and the whole structure that make people vulnerable in the first place. So instead of only coping with impacts, it would also make a difference between building their adaptive capacity in the longer term, and also engaging that the knowledge has already been there and shared. So I think it's what we are trying to say to see in terms of transformational adaptation is systematic change. So it tackles the root causes as inequality, poverty, exclusion, rather than just only symptoms. And also it's with equity and justice. So it redistributes resources and decision-making power and to the most affected communities, and it could be people, indigenous people, fisher folks, informal workers, and also indigenous peoples. And it is transformational institutional reform. So it looks as well at the governance structure, the law, and the financial mechanism that the adaptation is not going to be just only a charity and also a debt. And also its knowledge integration is not just only something imposing on the communities, but it's integration of the knowledge. It values traditional local wisdom, indigenous knowledge, and traditional science. And also the last one, it could be it's anticipatory and not reactive. So it's more on building it in here, not in the hard structure and hard infrastructure. Because the hard infrastructure like sea walls, anything happens, it will collapse. And then more collapsing and then more impacts. But whatever is in here with the software, it could also be evolving through time. So I hope I contribute somehow. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wanan, and to all of our member groups for amplifying the voices of those driving real climate justice on the ground. We'll be available for questions and for conversation outside. Thank you for being here.